Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about reading projects. Reading projects for me can be the most difficult to execute and the most gratifying to achieve. Maybe the most gratifying because it's the most difficult. I think that it takes a particular kind of focus to complete a reading project. And sometimes I get swept away by my own whims and whimsies that I don't focus on reading projects. But that's okay. So I'm going to show you potential reading projects that are on my shelves right now. Now, I just did a quick brainstorming session where I just went to my shelves and looked around and pulled things off my shelves and decided, okay, this could be a reading project. Trying to be both narrow in scope. So most of these are, an average of 3 books, a couple of 2-book projects, and then a couple of 6-book projects. So, yeah, if any of these appeal to you, let me know. If you're like, Shelly, you should do that project. Or I would highly encourage you to do that project. Let me know, because I think that'd be kind of fun. All right, if you're new, know that I'm Shelly, and I love books and reading, and I have been thinking about reading projects lately, so I'm taking you on that thought journey with me. If you're new, maybe subscribe. Without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So I have some reading projects that have to do with a particular author. The first being Susan Sontag. So I read Regarding the Pain of Others by Sontag, which was a brilliant piece of writing about war photography and the way that we consume it as viewers of war photography. So I also have On Photography, which is, I don't know the history of photography, perhaps. Didn't know for sure. And then I also have Where the Stress Falls, which I believe is on writing, Susan Sontag's musings on writing. And I also have a fiction book, which is The Volcano Lover, a romance by Sontag. So all of those are by Susan Sontag. Similarly, I have Hilary Mantel, which I've only read her Cromwell trilogy, or lovingly called the Wolf Hall trilogy. But I also have Every Day is Mother's Day, The Giant O'Brien, which is a historical fiction book about the legendary giant. I have An Experiment in Love by the same author, obviously. This is a contemporary fiction book, which I think is very different for her. I don't know about Every Day is Mother's Day. This is, let's see, Evelyn Axon. Oh, I like the name Evelyn. That was my grandmother's name. Evelyn Axon is a medium by trade. Her daughter, Muriel, is a half-wit by nature. Oh my gosh, that's kind of harsh. Barricaded in their crumbling house, surrounded by festering rubbish of years, they defy the curiosity of their neighbors and their social worker, Isabel Field. Isabel is young and inexperienced and has troubles of her own. Okay, an elderly father who wanders the streets, a lover, Colin, who wants her to run away with him, but Colin has 3 horrible children and a shrill wife who is pregnant again. How is he going to run anywhere? As Isabel wrestles with her own problems, a horrible secret grows in the darkness of the Axon household. When it at last comes to light, the result is by turns hilarious and terrifying. Okay, I have never read the back of this book. Wow, that is a lot. Okay, and then I also have a nonfiction book, which is a collection of collections of writings by Hilary Mantel, called Mantelpieces, which is ever so clever. And these are just, essays, book reviews, I believe. It's just a collection of randomness of Hilary Mantel's. Probably sold for people just like me who are suckers for her writing and buy everything by her, but have read very little. Okay, next, if I wanted to do a short Tudor project, maybe long, because all of these books are kind of behemoth-y, I have Ford Madox Ford's The Fifth Queen, which I have yet to read, but I've heard it's fantastic, mostly from Steve Donahue, my favorite book critic. I also have The Private Lives of the Tudors, which I think is a look at all of the public and private, what's the private lives of the Tudors, Shelley? Their sexual lives, their upbringing, education, kitchens, bathrooms, schoolrooms, courtrooms, all of the things about the Tudors that you would want to know, all the saucy details. And then I also have Peter Ackroyd's Tudors, which I've heard is fantastic. I heard Ackroyd is an amazing author. So if I wanted to do a Tudor reading project, I could do that. Now, y'all, I have so many little projects I could do. Hopefully I can keep them organized. Actually, let me take a moment to reorganize. I would love to do, I have a reading project going on right now. And I'll tell you about that at the end. So the next one is France. I have 2 memoirs by French writers, and that is Marguerite Duras's The War. She kept a war during the Nazi occupation in France in World War II. And then I also have Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter by Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote The Second Sex, and this is her memoir of growing up. And then I also have a book about somebody who spent a lot of time in France, and it's a very particular perspective on France, and it's My Life in France by Julia Child, the wonderful and amazing French chef. She is amazing, by the way. If you've never seen an old Julia Child episode, it's television at its best. I love watching her cook. There's something amazing. It actually kind of feels a little bit like YouTube, because they didn't have a lot of resources, and they're kind of like, there are just times where she just, I just spilled out of the bowl, and it's okay, just keep whipping, because we will clean up our messes later. But you realize that some of the impromptu or improvisation that she performs is because they only had one take, or they only had so much film, and so she's doing what she can with the resources she has. So I love that. Then we have books about quiet, essentially. So we have, and they're all nonfiction, Gift from the Sea and Mauro Lindbergh, which is her essays about, I think a lot of it is just meditations about youth and love and age and solitude and contentment. She set them down during a brief vacation by the sea. So drawing inspiration by the water. Then we have, again, I'm like, wow, a lot of these are sea related. They're not just quiet nature books. They're sea. So Upstream by Mary Oliver. Musings on, I've read parts of this, but it's a collection of essays. She's a poet about the willingness to lose yourself in the natural world. Then we have The House by the Sea by May Sarton. May Sarton, a writer at the mid to later 20th century. So this is her journal, and she's obviously living by the sea and probably taking inspiration by the quietness and the patterns and the rhythms of the ocean. And then we have A Journal of Solitude by May Sarton. I need a cough because I'm sick. I'm fighting a little cold, but I feel good enough to be with you, so I'm with you. We also have a 2-book project, Madeline Miller, The Song of Achilles and Circe, which everybody says I will love and have yet to get to. And then another 2-book project by an author that I really quite like a lot, and it's Olive Kittredge and Olive Again. So just easy peasy 2-book projects that I've yet to get to, and this pile here is getting out of hand. Then we have, and I think I probably have more than just this, we have Ancients, if I want to read the Ancients. I have a bunch of things. I have 12 Caesars by Suetonius, Ovid's Metamorphoses, the Comedies by Terence, and Herodotus's The Histories, which would be a good project because I tend to get a lot out of the Ancients, a lot, and I have yet to... It's been a little while since I've read anything ancient, which is such a shame. So, those 4 books. Then we have The South. I think the thing is that I don't want a reading project to be too broad because I don't want too many books in that reading project. And so I'm trying to keep it somewhat narrow so that it's not, I don't know, like I don't want a 27 book reading project. I just don't want that, Like who does? I'm sure some of you do. Or maybe your whole reading life is a one large reading project. Oh, that is kind of philosophical. Maybe our whole lives are one large reading project. Okay, Shelley. Maybe I'm losing it because I am a little bit sick. Okay, we are gonna do this. Okay, Southern literature. Literature about Southerners, written by Southerners. And I have mostly fiction. So we have Carson McCullers. We have two by Carson. Oh, this could be its own reading project. That might work better. The Carson McCullers reading project. That actually would probably work way better. But I have The Ballad of the Sad Cafe and Other Stories, and The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. Both I have not read. Then, actually, I have Eudora. Wait a second. Just give me a second. A mini reading project and a larger reading project, part 2. So we have Carson McCullers. Then we have Eudora Welty's. We have The Optimist's Daughter, and then a collection of short stories by Ms. Welty. So that could also be a small reading project within a reading project. And then I have Scarlet Sister Mary by Julia Peterkin. I really don't know what this is about. Banned in Boston when it was first published. Oh my gosh. Sexy, independent, and outspoken woman who lives to please herself. Abandoned by her husband, the heroine takes many lovers and loses her firstborn son, and eventually finds peace as a church member. Oh. Although she refuses to give up her love charm and her gold hoop earrings. Well, who would want to give up their gold hoop earrings? Nobody. So we have that. Margaret Walker's Jubilee. Don't know what this is about. Jubilee tells a story of Viry, a child of a white plantation owner, and his black mistress. Viry bears witness to the South's antebellum opulence and its brutality. Oh my gosh. During the Reconstruction. So we have this. Then we have The Good Lord Bird by James McBride. So this is about a young slave living in the Kansas Territory. And stuff happens. I think I'm just losing steam, y'all. I think I'm like, the sickness is like hitting me in the face. And then I have the Kitchen House, which is the turn of the 19th century on a tobacco plantation in Virginia, which y'all have been wanting me to read. This is like, most people are like, Shelley, just read this. So we have a couple of collections within a collection for Southern literature. I'll show you all of them together. Am I also probably taking a thumbnail from this? Yes. Oh, continuing with authors that I have a lot of books from them and could be their own reading project, it would be Elena Ferrante. So I have The Days of Abandonment, The Story of a Lost Child, which is the 4th book in her Neapolitan Quartet, Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, the 3rd book in her Neapolitan Quartet, and The Lying Life of Adults. The Days of Abandonment and this book are both standalone. By the way, talk about a cover that they're doing right. Yes, I really quite enjoy this cover. I think it's beautiful. And okay, I'm going to stop just admiring. Oh, books about India. So I have a memoir, which is by Santha Ramarao, which is Home to India. This is a memoir about living in India. Then I have Aruhinti Roy books, which I guess these two could be their own reading project, but also fits in the scope of books about India. And it's The God of Small Things and The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. And the book about India, which is A Suitable Boy, which is a massive just chunkster. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think I was doing a lot of videos about chunksters, and I think I almost got myself in the mindset of the fact that a reading project is I could read all my chunksters in a year kind of thing, or in 18 months. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't think that's actually a healthy way of doing it, because one, that's an extremely intimidating project. I'm just going to read my 1,000 page book or 900 page books in a year. Like that's just a lot, you know? And so I was like, wait, how can I break this up into a more manageable stack? And I was like, oh, books about India. So this, I'm going to stop thinking of as the longest book that I own, and maybe slot it into a reading project, which would make this book a little more approachable. Or just reading it by itself would be approachable instead of having to make it a reading project. And then I think I just have one more, and it's my classic science fiction. I should clarify, classic science fiction fantasy, because to me it's all the same. So we have Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. Didn't realize this was a science fiction classic until everyone on BookTube was reading about it. These are, I have two more contemporary science fiction fantasy books, or fantasy books. So I have The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Okay, I guess the true classics would be maybe these next four. So The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Another Ursula K. Le Guin book, which is a Wizard of Earthsea. Actually, that would be a good little reading project right there, just Ursula K. Le Guin books. And then I have The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. And then I have another book that I think is, I think of it as classic because it changes the way that fantasy exists today. The front runner of weird fantasy, which is Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. So I have all that for classic fantasy. And again, I felt really weird to just be like, oh, a time period. Well, I guess the Ancients would be a time period, but I feel like I have so few of those books that, it makes sense. But to just say like Victorian literature, I'm like, I have like 30 Victorian lit books that I haven't read. Or maybe not that many. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. So I'm like, how can I categorize this into something more manageable? I just, some of these things I've just skipped because I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. So here are the classic science fiction fantasy books. And I think that's it for now. That was like what I brainstormed in like 10 or 15 minutes. I was just like, oh yeah, these go together. These go together. And I think it makes it a little more manageable. I don't know. But also I just think reading, project-based reading is amazing. For example, I read The Yearling and Marjorie Kinnan Rowling's book, the biography of Marjorie Kinnan Rowling, who wrote The Yearling. And it was great. It was just great. Really enriching. And finally, the reading project that I'm currently doing is one about Curtis Sittenfeld. I'm just reading a ton of her books. Well, a ton. I say a ton. I read Rodham this year. I read Prep. I'm just about finished with American Wife. Yes, I'm still reading it. And I have one more. I think I want to read Eligible next. Yeah, or romantic comedy. I'm just on this Curtis Sittenfeld kick, and that's like a natural project where I'm really just enjoying what I'm doing. That's kind of what I did with Elizabeth Strout. I read like all of her Lucy Barton series, like one after the other, and I just really enjoyed it. And I think of it almost as like one large, which is how she writes anyway. So one large universe of writing. And for Curtis Sittenfeld, it's a little bit different because they're not interconnected books, but her themes in her writing is interconnected. You could see, you can see the themes in her writing, what she's interested in, and how she's developed over the years. And I think that that's really fascinating. And I'll have a whole book probably dedicated to like my thoughts on Curtis, or my developing thoughts on her, because I think just following her has been an absolute joy in my reading life this year. It's been like one of the highlights of my reading year this life. One of the highlights of my reading life this year. Oh my gosh, I need to go. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye!